Hey, welcome back to 2DG. We've got a little special discussion today about craft beer.
Something we haven't done at all yet. We do talk about, sometimes we'll throw in tidbits like, if you're new to the scene or whatever. So we thought maybe we would kind of bring you up to speed on at least what we know and what goes behind some of our decision-making processes is what to buy other than the trash talk, which that's just a novelty.
Well, and we want to also put out there what you can expect from certain breweries and, what our opinions are on them, or not opinions, but what we think about when we think of those breweries.
Yeah.
So I don't know, where do you want to start?
Let's start kind of like where
Some of the old guard?
Yeah, and the oldest two are, kind of two of the biggest boys. Well, we'll go three. So you have Sierra Nevada,
Right,
obviously.
definitely.
That sprouted on the West Coast with their famous Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. That most people, it's still kind of like, the gold standard.
Well, not to mention most people in America haven't had an ale prior to that.
Yeah.
That was, if you're going from the crappy lager scene, not crappy, but you know what I mean, the big boys. Lager scene, and you go beer, and then finally you taste something with flavor. I mean, what a revolution that had to be.
I think the real founder was Anchor Brewing Company, based out in San Francisco. I think they came out slightly before them. Their famous flagship beer that I think probably everyone has probably had or at least heard of would be the Anchor Steam, also known as. And here's kind of funny: Anchor Steam is it's a California common is the beer style. But a lot of people were calling them steam beers, but Anchor kind of put a trademark on that, so that's why they have to call it a California Common.
Which they would have defined that category on their own anyway.
Yeah. And then the big boy on the East Coast, two more. So the biggest one that most people know would be Sam Adams. They're everywhere. They taught us that a lager could be good. Could taste really good. I know you disagree with me on the whole Boston lager.
I would agree that Boston lager tastes better than your standard run-of-the-mill lagers.
Easily. And then the oldest craft brewery, I use that term kind of loosely here.
They kind of grandfathered into that.
Yeah. Is Yuengling.
Yuengling's been around. It's the oldest brewery in the U.S. And it's not that they were craft ever. It was just they never
sold out.
They didn't sell out. They didn't outgrow that small market machine that they are. But they are well loved.
Yeah, and I think we covered this in a previous video, but if you're out on the east or mostly like Pennsylvania, you just ask for lager. You don't say the name. You don't need to. You just say I have lager, and then they just give you the Yuengling lager. And then some of the subsidiaries that kind of popped up. And most of these guys came around in the 90s, kind of the
bigger...
Yeah, we'll touch on a big one in the West, a big one in the Midwest, and then a big one in the East. And I know there's a couple that we're going to leave out, like Bell's and Founders.
Yeah, we're not trying to hit everybody.
Yeah.
We're just giving some overall generalizations.
So let's start on the East. Stone. We've done...
you mean West.
West. Stone, which we've done quite a few reviews on. You know them by now. But they kind of pushed hops for the average beer drinker that was still drinking, Budweiser and all that stuff.
Would it be fair to say that they coined the West Coast style?
No.
Really?
That's Sierra Nevada.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, so Stone just perfected it.
They went to the extreme with it. When they started out, I believe their first beer was the Stone Pale Ale, if I remember correctly. I read their story. It's been a little while, but I think the IBUs were in the 50s, which was insane number for back then. In the 90s, I guess it's not that long ago, but it was huge because you look at most of your like Budweiser and stuff. I think they're like 13, or something like that.
You're talking some of these things that are like 4 or 10,
Yeah, and then I think for their second or third anniversary, they came out with their standard now Stone IPA, which is again kind of one of the gold standards for West Coast IPA styles. And then, of course, their huge trademark beer that kind of really put them on the map was Arrogant Bastard. which is something that no one had ever seen before.
Big.
Yeah.
I think too that a lot of people who my age is, or older, that grew up with the big three breweries, you know, gosh, that beer is so bitter and just it's hard to drink. You don't really say you're a beer lover, but and then when you get introduced to these ales and people are like, oh, it's super hoppy, and everyone I know assumed that the bitterness in the lagers was due to the hops, and you thought more can't be good, but you soon find out when you transition into that ale realm that it's massive and hops are your friend.
Yeah, and it took some time for him to come to the good side.
Yeah.
But he got there and he's happy for it.
But when I think of Stone, I think of a perfectionist brewery that produced just exquisite beer after exquisite beer. And I wouldn't call them huge risk takers. They won't release something that they aren't sure is a hit, in my opinion. But their quality is second to none. So
I think with that, all their stuff is just
it's great.
hit. So I mean, it's really tough. Let's jump from that. Let's go to a brewery that will release stuff just to be different, so to speak. Their motto, or company motto, is off-centered ales for off-centered people. Dogfish Head, out of Milton, Delaware. They originally started in Rehoboth Beach, at a brew pub. That Sam Calagione is the founder, owner, and he actually changed a lot of laws in the state so he could, do what he wanted to do.
I'd say he's been huge nationwide for
Yeah.
really pushing that. And I know they team up with other like Stone and stuff to get these laws, but I think he's a driving force.
Yeah, and Dogfish Head was actually in Indiana up until I think 2 or 3 years ago. We didn't carry it. They came here first, and then they pulled back, whether it be because we weren't buying a lot or because they just couldn't sustain it. They kind of maybe grew too fast. But anyway, Dogfish Head beers were the first ones that I drove out of state to go get.
I remember that.
Yeah, I just went to Ohio. I mean, it wasn't anything big, and I think I got Raison d'Etre and Chicory Stout. Those were 2 beers I had never had anything even remotely close to what those were.
I'd like to revisit those because I remember the Raison I did not really care for.
I bet you would.
I was in transition barely at that time.
Yeah. But yeah, they do tons of crazy stuff, and I know we've done a number of those beers.
I would say that was our first brewery that we homer,
Yeah, and they kind of pioneered their own take on an IPA, so to speak, which used to be the old East Coast style, which more balanced, higher malt characteristic. Their 90 minute is still regarded as one of the staple beers to have once you get into it.
The beauty is it's not as difficult to get as a lot of those beers that, as a beginner craft beer drinker, you seek out.
And they're big enough now that they're in grocery stores. So I mean that's
a plus.
Yeah, it's pretty big. But yeah, definitely one of our favorites. Sometimes they do stuff I feel like just to do it.
Oh, I agree, and that's one of the things I love about them.
Yeah, they're definitely risk takers.
When I think of Dogfish Head, I do think of risk taking, and I think of a chef, because where the others do formula, Dogfish will go so far outside the normal just to see what happens. I mean, this guy, they'll put in this, and they'll throw in a little of that, and they'll mix it with this just to see what they get, and that's one of the cool things about craft beer. It's one of the cool things about homebrewing, and it's one of the best things about Dogfish Head.
Yeah, I feel Dogfish Head was responsible for a lot of the explosion in the industry.
I agree.
I know that if you ever watch the show Brewdogs, it's based on 2 guys, James and Martin. They founded the craft brewery, Brewdog in Aberdeen, Scotland. They said that Sam Calagione was essentially their messiah type of thing, with like he's the one that changed our outlook on everything and really made them kind of jump. And they're the biggest growing brewery in England or whatever. However they do that over there.
Yeah, so I mean, nothing but good things to say about Dogfish Head.
And going along with them not being normal, let's go ahead and jump to the Midwest. And I know that we've talked about them too much, but it's not normal is their motto. Three Floyds out of Munster,
Indiana.
Yeah, if you haven't heard us talk about them, you haven't been watching our stuff.
Unfortunately, we can say if you haven't had their beer, you need to. Their distribution's not that large. I'm sorry, because if you haven't had it, you're missing out on some tremendous beer.
Yeah, we get two of their mainstays here now regularly, like it's on the shelf about every time now, being Alpha King, which is their flagship beer. It's an American style. I think they call it just an American pale, but it's every spec puts it in the IPA category except for their name. And then Yum Yum, which is a sessionable IPA, which he hates for some reason.
I don't hate it. They're just not my favorite because they are. When I think of Three Floyds, I know what I want, and these are more subtle.
Yeah, and we've done very dumb things to get beer from them.
Admittedly, we thought Dark Lord would be a grail we'd be chasing for a long time, and we nailed it
Pretty easily.
right off the bat.
Yeah, and if you don't know what Dark Lord is, we got a bunch of videos on it, so just check them out.
And more to come.
Yeah, definitely.
But as a brewery, it's not normal. Is a great descriptor. Highly malty beers, but uber hopped.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Stone of the Midwest, and the fact that they started shoving hops in your face, and we're very unapologetic about it. And they're like, if you don't like it, we don't want you.
Yeah.
And kind of rebellious attitude, and the owner, Nick Floyd. If you haven't seen the Munchies review that he did,
check it out.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's good stuff.
And with their mild, small distribution, they can afford to say that. They're always sold out.
Yeah.
Even if you go to the brew pub, they limit you on what you can buy, how much, I should say. And, I mean, they open at 11. You're lucky if there's what you want is left by 11:15. I mean, people gobble up, especially if it's Z-Dust, Zombie Dust, anything like that.
Stand in line and you just see cases coming out of their little side door or whatever, and it's all Zombie Dust, all of it. And then once it sells out, then you start seeing other stuff.
And they're also one of those great breweries that make a lot of beers that they don't release in bottle, can, or any other form. So going there is worthwhile.
Yeah, and a lot of breweries do that, and that's one of the draws to going to see where it's made. Is just seeing some awesome stuff. I think in our Sun King video that we just posted, I go into a little bit of detail about two of the beers that we had there that I've never seen anyway released. And the Rump Shaker that I had, they actually wouldn't let us have 2 samples because they didn't have enough. So that was kind of cool.
And I will say, if you are new to the craft scene, going to the brewery is desirable. And I will venture to say that some of the best beers that the companies make are only available at the brewery. I think our 2015 Douchey Award for Best Beer Overall,
Best Beer Off Camera.
Best Beer Off Camera was Alpha Knot from Three Floyds, which they don't package, at least not recently.
Yeah, I think the waitress said they did once a couple years ago, but
it is a phenomenal beer.
But yeah, if you can get it, and I know they're in some bigger cities. They're in Chicago, they're in Milwaukee. I don't know if they're in Ohio, and I think they were down in Louisville, maybe in Michigan, but definitely greater Indiana.
Yeah.
Michiana,
Iliana.
Yeah, those terms suck.
Yeah, but that's what it is. I don't know where you categorize that one.
Yeah.
But I would like to go to some of these smaller. What we're going to talk about now is smaller breweries that are well established.
And I think leading the way would be Russian River out in California. I believe they're in Northern California.
San Fran area, close to.
And they produce Pliny the Elder, which is what many, many, many people call the perfect beer. I have never had it. I can't say that. I probably would if I could.
Haven't made it there yet.
Yeah. They were close to getting it.
Yeah, in Colorado.
But just missed it. Anyway.
They also do Pliny the Younger, which we've never been close to getting.
Yeah, not ever. Basically what that is if you've seen our Dark Lord video where they release it once a year, they kind of do that, except for they don't bottle it. It's all on draft, all at the brew pub, and it's a 2-week thing. And I don't know if they only do it on the weekends or every day, but there's lines that you will literally sit in line for 8 hours.
Yeah.
I think they limit like 2 or 3 pours, and I don't know how big it is, 10 or 12 or
I was
whatever.
thinking it was a 2 pour and it was 10 or 12.
Yeah. But the hype on that is sickening.
Yeah.
But
and I want to taste it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can make that pilgrimage at some point.
And I would say that Russian River is a little more established than some of the others we're going to list off here, but these others are game-changing breweries that they might not be as wide and dynamic as some of the bigger ones we've already mentioned, but they are flipping the industry on its head with their style and their flavors. And I would say that the Heady Topper from The Alchemist.
Yeah, and that really kind of established what is known as the New England style. So before it was just like West Coast, East Coast. Now they've kind of segregated that even more into the New England style IPAs, basically, is the new style. So like he said, Heady Topper, which is another kind of grail chaser.
And we're still chasing.
Yeah.
They sold out 2 days before I got there, unfortunately.
And I know you've heard us talk about that before.
But we are planning, hopefully, another trip here this year.
Yeah. You got Hill Farmstead, which isn't necessarily in the New England style IPAs, but they're a New England brewery that is killing it. They've kind of lost some of the hype here recently just because of the emergence of other breweries out there.
in the region. And if you haven't been in New England, if you're from Midwest, West, you know that, one town to the next can be quite a distance. Mm-hmm. Out in New England, that's across a state. It's really amazing how far you can drive in a short time in New England.
Yeah, and you also know that if you're from the Midwest or West, you aren't getting it unless you go there, and then you even got to get lucky.
Hill Farmstead, we were lucky enough to get some last year at Dark Lord Day.
Yeah, they had it on tap in one of the trucks, which was awesome. And I will say, in hindsight, we did not appreciate that beer as much as we should have.
No, I think we were a little too hyped for what was to come.
Yeah.
And then too wrecked to to enjoy it. Treehouse.
Treehouse is the...
It's one of the newest.
Yeah, they're like the Golden State Warriors. Everyone likes them now. Like, not to say that they've been around that long and sucked for a long time and then were kind of rebirthed.
They're new.
Yeah, they're the Steph Curry of beer right now.
Yeah, they're draining shot after shot.
Yeah, they're
home runs, I don't know what do you want to call it, what analogy you want to put to it, but they are.
They got 3 big.
No one has ever said a bad word about the beers that I've seen,
except for the hype. The inability to get it.
Yeah, the ability to get it, that's one thing. But my understanding is they are building, or will be soon, building a new brewery, which will be much bigger than what they currently have.
Yeah, they're known for all of them, but the 3 big ones, Green, Julius, which there's actually a Team Green and Team Julius battle, which is awesome for them. And then, and I forget the name. I can't remember if it's Sunday Morning Brunch or something like that. But it's I think number 1 or number 2 rated beer right now in the world, according to Beer Advocate or Rate Beer, one of those two. But it's a regular stout. I think it comes in around like 8%. But with I think bourbon and maple syrup.
Gorgeous.
And it's insane. It's behind Morning Delight, I think, from Toppling Goliath, which is basically the same thing, only it's an imperial stout. So it's higher in alcohol, thicker, chewier, all that stuff. But they're both supposed to be just insane.
So speaking of Toppling Goliath, I would say that Toppling Goliath is the Midwest new upstart, big desirable beer. I would say they're the Heady, the treehouse of the Midwest. But I would say, having tasted some Toppling, that they're more in the vein of Three Floyds.
Yes, definitely.
Not as malt forward, I would say, in what I've had, but their IPA is so clean and crisp and
Yeah, they're
flavorful.
The pseudo Sue that we had was great. Basically, it was like having zombie dust.
Except maybe cleaner.
Yeah, the King Sue I haven't had. Would really like to, which is the big brother or big sister, however you want to look at it. I do want to jump back to the New England real quick,
go
just
ahead.
because there's still probably two more that I really want to cover.
Okay.
Trillium, which they're right on par with the hype, the excellence of the product that Treehouse is.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I couldn't locate any when I was in Boston, and I don't know if I just didn't look hard enough or the places I went just didn't have it. I don't even know what their distribution is.
They're tiny. They're real tiny.
I wish I would have tried harder now.
Yeah, right. And then the other one is Lawson's Finest Liquids, which if you don't know them, I don't know if you do.
No, I don't.
But they do Lawson's, I think it's Little Sip of Sunshine or Sip of Sunshine or whatever, and that's, again, regarded to be
that's
huge.
One of the newest top tier that is like just nailing it.
And then
I haven't seen much on them. They're so new, in my opinion. But
and then there's a whole bunch out there too.
Yeah, what was the Maine?
Yeah,
Wasn't there one in Maine?
The Maine Beer Company, which they do lunch,
I've had
dinner, which you did not appreciate, in my opinion, as much as you should have, based on the hype that's around.
I got literally the last pour from a keg, and it wasn't even a full pour. It was just, here's what's left, taste it. And it was a good beer. It was a real good beer. And I would have loved to have had a full pour, but didn't have it.
Say the Bissell Brothers.
Yeah, this is. Yes.
Yeah, they're tiny. I don't know if they've grown since I watched a video on YouTube, interview in the day of them, and it was a couple years ago. So I imagine that they've expanded from where they were. They were literally canning beers 2 at a time by hand. That's how small they were. But yeah, their newest one that I've seen is Swish. It's a double IPA, and I pulled up the specs on it a couple days ago and showed you, but it's insane from what I understand. Really in true style of the New England-esque stuff, and just, really, really good stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of New York coming out, like Grimm and Other Half and all this stuff.
We're not trying to overlook anyone. We're just trying to lay out some of the exciting things and, if you're new to the scene, give you a little direction, what's, desirable, and just to say, go out and try everything you can. I mean, there's so much out there, so many different styles, so many different sub-regions that are just so different from others.
And then in the South, which a lot of the states in kind of like the Southern Bible Belt region, like Alabama and Arkansas and stuff like that, they have really strict laws.
I'm seeing some stuff though.
Yeah, no, it's definitely starting to grow. But the bigger one down south is Cigar City. They have their
Florida, right? So
Tampa, yeah. So their big one is Hunapoo, and they have a Hunapoo Day, just like Dark Lord Day, and it's allegedly insane.
Well,
and I
don't think it's as free this year. Much freedom as there is at Dark Lord Day, but
yeah, they have awesome stuff down there. Their High Lies, one that they're really known for, IPA. Never had it.
No, I haven't had any.
Yeah, well, we had a sour at Dark Lord Day from them. It was very, very sour, but very good.
It's hard to remember Dark Lord.
Yeah.
We had some great stuff at Dark Lord.
Yeah, but again, we haven't had anything from them other than that I can think of. I have a pretty good memory about that.
We're getting a little long, but